He's usually on.
Bob's in here. No.
Well, I got 7 o'clock on Monday. All right. I'm going to call the November 23rd meeting to order. If we could all stand for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. If we could have a roll call, please.
Jennifer Sevigny. Jenny Sevigny.
Here.
Neil Watland's excused. David Newbill. Jenny McKay.
Here.
Jim Christopher. Lynn Shank.
Yes, ma'am.
Jeff Kinzie.
Here.
Barely. We don't really have mostly just discussions this evening. So first on the agenda is the approval of the meeting minutes from October 26th.
I make a motion, we accept the meeting minutes from October 26, 21.
I'll make a motion to second that.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Meeting minutes are approved. Next is the approval of today's agenda.
I make a motion, we approve today's agenda.
I'll make a motion to second that.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Agenda is approved. First on the agenda is a discussion regarding the Renaissance Festival.
Madam Chair,
Yes.
if I could interrupt, I need to say something before you get to the regular body, okay? And the clerk over here, so, okay. For those of you who don't know, Jenny Sevigny has been, in my opinion, honestly, the absolute best chairperson in the township's history, period. But you just know, counting for people's tastes, her and her husband have decided they would rather be in Florida in the winter than up here in our wonderful, cold, bitter weather. So,
Gary.
Jenny, I can't say enough good things about you. I honestly think you are the best chair we've ever had.
Except you when you were chair.
No, the best one. And I hate to see you go. It leaves a big hole, and I have no idea who they're going to pick next. But I just want to say, in recognition for your many years of service and outstanding leadership in Groveland Township, Jenny Sevigny serving Groveland Township from 1998 to 2021 on the Board of Review, the Board of Zoning Appeals as the chair, and the Planning Commission is the best chair in our history. With gratitude, Groveland Township and the residents say thank you very much. You have.
I thank you. You should have said that at the end of the meeting.
Well, I figured there'll be some discussions.
Yeah.
I'm letting this out of the way, and if you want, we can take a few minutes to
Yeah, no.
do that at the end.
No, we'll do that at the end.
Okay, there's some cake when it wants it at the end.
I just want to say that I pretty much lived my life in this community between Brandon and Groveland Township, and I love it here. I love the people here. I think the township has done a great job in trying to serve the residents here, and it's just been an honor to be a part of that. And so I applaud everyone in this township and the efforts that they've put forward and continue to put forward. I applaud the residents. I know you're here tonight to talk about an issue that is challenging, and I applaud you for coming, because this is how we work together as a community, to have discussions, to have dialogue, and to try to find the best solution. So thank you. And with that,
Thank you.
yeah, so we'll get into the meeting. So do you want to start? You've had a couple of meetings. Yeah.
Okay, this is just really, the purpose of today is not to actually have the agenda item, but just to make the rest of the board available of the information, because Jenny and I, Chief Mason, the assistant chief in Holly, the supervisor in Holly, and the Michigan State Police and the Oakland County Sheriff met after the colossal disaster we had with the Renaissance Festival's traffic this year. And it was just an open discussion on what do you think can be done to fix it. And there was a lot of discussion, and then I sent some minutes to everybody that was involved in it on here's the issues that were brought up. And then I did it deliberately. I put a message out on YouTube, which is on YouTube and the township channel, saying, here's what was discussed in the meeting. And it's got to go to both planning commissions. And I'm just giving you a heads up on it because we haven't discussed it yet. It will have to be dealt with both townships because the only, I guess the most encouraging thing out of it is in the past, I think there's been a real hesitancy on the part of Holly Township to want to address some of the issues because as most of you know, the festival's physically in Holly, but we have part of the parking lot in the front and virtually are the recipients of 100% of the traffic problems. And in the past, we've had a couple of efforts where we thought we had it fixed and it works for a couple of years and then it breaks down. And that's exactly what happened this past year. And there's a whole litany of reasons. And a lot of that was discussed at the preliminary meeting. And then subsequent to that, we had another meeting with myself, the Holly supervisor and the Oakland County Sheriff and the Michigan State Police again. And they've indicated what they think the course of action is. That information, and I'm sure Jenny will pass it on to whoever her subsequent replacement is, along with the information I had, will be given to the both planning commissions, and we'll see what happens with the solution. I don't know what the answer is yet. I have in the past, just so you know, suggested that maybe the solution to the festival was to cap the daily attendance. But you need to understand, we don't control the festival's permit. So this has got to be something that I think we do, again, together with Holly, or we're going to be going down the same road of exactly the same thing every year and wondering why the results aren't changing. We got some numbers today on what they said their attendance is. I questioned some of those, but I was showing the building, the fire station, to some people today and did not have a chance to get back to them. So the real purpose today was to just make you aware that we had had some preliminary meetings. There's been some discussions and some suggestions. And it's our intention that both this planning commission and the one in Holly sit down and figure out what they think can actually be done to resolve the issues with the Renaissance Festival. Just keep in mind, we need their cooperation to try and get some changes because the festival itself and its permit is through Holly Township. The Groveland Township's part in this is the front part of the parking lot. And unfortunately, all of the associated traffic issues. So with that, we'll hope that between the two of them, they can come up with solutions that might work to make it better. And that's what the goal is. And we've kind of decided, I think, in discussions I've had with some other people that whatever we come up with needs to be in place, I think, a full 90 days before the festival actually opens to make sure that the piece parts are all there. So it's just a litany of things that went wrong this year. But my intention today was just to make the rest of the board available to understand that I intend to have this hopefully on the January meeting for you to look at and get some information from the festival that we haven't got yet. But I just wanted you to know so you have some time to think about it through December and the holidays. If there are ideas you think that need to be incorporated into what goes into it next year, I wanted to give you some time to think about it before you actually met on the issue. And I believe Holly's doing the same thing to the best of my knowledge.
And you know, just maybe to add to that, I had it was the second to last weekend. I came up to Dixie Highway on Grange Hall and the traffic was backed all the way up to the light. And so I thought, well, I'm going to turn right and just see how bad this is. And it was horrible. It was all the way onto the ramp onto I-75.
All the way back, yep.
You know, and so I sent an email to Bob and said, you know, this is the worst I've ever seen it. You know, this is just horrible. And so I think for the first time that I've participated in any way, we had all the parties present to try to talk. We had Holly Township, you know, Groveland, Bob represented Groveland Township. We had the Michigan State Police. We had the Oakland County Sheriff's Department.
Both fire departments.
Both fire departments. Yeah, so we had everybody in the room, and part of it is you say, you know, you want to hear from the experts, you know, the people that deal with large traffic. And so the officers that were there that claimed it, you know, do a traffic control at Pine Knob and the stadium at U of M, and they were, you know, they gave their suggestions. And so that's part of, you know, the information that we have. And I think, you know, what people are concerned about is the additional exits and entrance to the property. They were pretty strong in their recommendations that that's, you know, what's needed to move traffic. And so, you know, so that's some of the information that's been provided. I think that, you know, nothing's been decided. Will be
Yeah.
decided after I'm off the board.
I think one of the issues is, and I don't know who started this or if it's true, because there's always speculation that somebody supposedly said, I said, it's all done deal,
Oh.
and I never said that.
No,
If
no,
you want to know exactly what Bob said, Bob put exactly what he said on the video that's on the cable channel and on YouTube. That's
Yeah.
exactly what I said.
Yeah.
And I don't know firsthand whether or not somebody else said that on the other side of the equation, but I did.
And- and, you know, just, you know, full disclosure, I've said for years, and I said in the meeting, I'm a big fan of limiting the attendance. If you've attended the Renaissance Festival during its crowded days, it's unbearable. It's not even pleasant. You just leave. It's just so crowded. And so I specifically asked when we were there, and the Holly Township's the one that manages that. And, you know, I said, you know, aren't we exceeding the capacity of that property? I think it gets to a point of being unsafe. There's so many people in
I
there.
think history has told us in the past, from what I've seen, the maximum daily traffic they can handle well when everything's working right is about 27,000. At 28 or 9, it usually starts to break down. And the part of the issue is because I have gone to Holly before and said, can't we do something about this? Because I don't think it's safe when everybody's there. And I would suggest, if you've seen a picture of the crowd when it's there, most people would say that. They're using, the way they do this is, there's something called an NFP, National Fire Protection Code, that they look up different, there's not one that says Renaissance Festival, but it'll say outdoor festival without specific design. And when they look at that, it gives you a square foot per person. So what they do, they take the entire area of the festival itself, and all of that's in Holly, excluding the parking lot. And then they take the existing square footage of all of the buildings that are there, and they subtract that. They take the remaining number of feet, they look at that table on that design and say, I forget what it is, 1.7 or something, divide it into there, and that's how they come up with the number. And they say 32 to 34,000. And I say, I've never seen that work. And I said, the problem with the system is that I think that's assuming that you're spreading the entire contents of the festival over the entire festival area. But if you look at the festival, typically when it's busy, what you see is the people are condensed around where the food courts are. And that's in one area. For me, I think I would say you need to spread those out so that the crowd is spread out farther instead of congested. But again, that isn't Holly Township. We
Right,
don't have control over that.
right.
And we can't help if they cannot park on their property. So with that, we need to get their buy-in. The thing I will say that is somewhat as encouraging, I thought, was for the first time, the Holly supervisor, who's new to it now, he hasn't been in it before, said, yeah, I think we have to deal with this. We also had our county commissioner there, who's over both Holly and Groveland, so that he would know what's in on it. So we had everybody we could get involved that had anything to do with it to be able, and Kathy was there. So
Right.
So we had a pretty good cast on the first meeting. The second meeting was really with the road commission and the two police officials to say, is there something we can do with the signs? And a lot of people don't understand it, but you can't just put up a no parking sign somewhere. They actually have to get a Michigan State Police traffic order to do that. And I know because I've been working a year and a half to try and get it on Tyndall Road for the disc golf that they have in the Holly Rec area where they park in some guy's parking lot and he has to have them towed away. And we've got to the point where the state police said, yeah, we think we should do that, but they haven't written the traffic order yet. because it comes out of one guy up in Lansing. And so when some of them are saying, well, we just put somewhere no parking signs up because Perryville was a real disaster. And I think Holdridge had cars parked. So there were a couple, and they were parked as far down as Groveland Road, but where they were, nobody lives there and it wasn't blocking the road. So when that happened, I said, well, that's nice, but I'm just telling you, you just can't pick up the phone and say, put up some no parking signs. It don't work that way. So that was the reason I had everybody else involved in the second meeting. It was really to talk about signs, and the police made a couple of good suggestions in there that we'll probably have to consider. The MSP trooper said the people that park on Perryville Road know damn well they shouldn't park there. You can put all the signs you want up, it ain't gonna change it. You need to put some big signs up at the front of the road that say you can't park here for those weekends and you will be towed. And those signs actually come from the road commission, not the Michigan State Police, because they do them at a number of events where they post them, they take them down, the next year they put them back up. So that's probably part of the solution, but I don't think that fixes the, for lack of a better phrase, the core of the issue. I think it helps some, but not fixes the core. And they also suggested that they should put a PA system in so that when they start towing people's cars, the festival could end up telling them, hey, we're towing your cars if you got them parked on Perryville or Holdridge or whatever. And so all of those things have to be discussed. I have not talked to Kathy. I told her I had a meeting. We had some items of discussion. I don't want you left out in the cold. And if you want, we'll get together and I'll tell you what was transpiring at the meeting. And she said she'll get back to me, but just so you know, she hasn't yet. So that's why I said today's meeting was not to figure out how do we fix it, but to make you aware that there's a lot of issues on this and a lot of people have been inputting information on it, and both planning commissions are going to have to figure out if there's a way to do it. Because the one thing I'll guarantee you is if we don't do something different, insanity is the definition of doing the same thing and expecting a different answer. It's not going to happen. And we really don't have any way, if we don't cap the attendance, I think, to control what happens. The current literature that she sent over to us indicates that they think they're going to have 280,000 people plus next year. That is bigger than any crowd they've ever had. And they said, and again, I need to check this. I haven't had a chance because I've been out of the office most of the day. But they said they think they had 218,000 this year, which frankly would be one of the smallest crowds they've ever had.
Yeah. Yeah.
So I just want to make sure y'all have time to think of those issues over the holiday weekend before you get down into the dirty. How do we fix this? You know, to know what's going on.
Yeah, I went back and Kathy had in her materials the attendance records for 2019, and it never exceeded over 20,000 on any given day.
And when she said that to me, because Danielle, God bless her, she said that to me, and I looked at it when I opened. I said, 20,000. That wasn't a daily attendance. That was for the whole festival. And I sent her, I said, is this daily average or what? And she said, oh, I made a mistake. I put the decimal in the wrong place. So she sent me another list with the numbers in the right place. And then she sent another one that we got late today, I think.
She just sent over the
with the
2020.
2021 numbers where I think
Yeah.
she said 280. Yeah, and when I think back to the first festivals we had, I think the first ones, when they moved here from Columbia and Springfield, I think they were about 213 or 15, and then they grew, and I remember one that got up to about 255. I think that's when we had a problem. For them to say 218, my next question there tomorrow is, what the hell went wrong? It was fairly light traffic. You had one of the worst controls we've ever seen.
Well, I mean, in the email that you're showing me, she's saying in 2021, the same number that she reported in 2019. So I think she just made a mistake. And just, to cut a little slack, she's had some death in the family, and, so she's challenged right now. And so I kind of understand that maybe your head's not right on the numbers, but it is hard to believe.
I said, you're crazy. I said, can you explain this to me?
Yeah, but I think, so when you look at, prior numbers, I haven't seen where it's really exceeded much more than 20,000 in a day, but again,
I have when I look at it.
okay, yeah. So you're saying you've seen numbers.
I get to 27 and it's busy, but it kind of works. At 28 or 9, it just starts to collapse.
Okay.
That's it. And so when her literature for the upcoming year suggests they're gonna have 280,000 plus, I'm like, well, if you actually had 218,000 this year, what are you gonna do with the other 62,000 people that are gonna show up?
And so, when we take a look at, and I'm just saying this for the planning commission, when the issue comes, what'll happen is there'll be a request for the special use permit, approval of the special use permit. And so that's where, and that is just really for the parking area. The
Yeah.
Holly Township will take care of all the requirements, for the actual festival and the buildings and the rest, they'll be handling that. And so, what Bob has done repeatedly over the years is, he's informed Kathy that, we have conditions to be met, or we're not giving you the special use permit. So that will be understanding what are the conditions going to be, and those are, evolving as we speak right now, trying to understand how do we solve this problem, and then, ensuring that it, for example, yeah, you can't say, well, I'll rent a sign and then tell us afterwards, I couldn't get one.
And that's what
So, so this, and that's what one of the things that happened. And so you say, okay, purchase a sign, make sure it's there, I don't want to hear that it wasn't available because you couldn't rent one, buy, so some of the things are going to be, you've got to demonstrate prior to, this body giving the approval of the use permit, that whatever the experts have said, is what we need to work on actually gets worked on.
This has been fixed at least 2 times in the past, because when we had a blow up once before, we made them get more parking, and one year they tried using the property that's now next to the haunted house. But the haunted house guy is buying that property, and frankly, while they tried it one year, it wasn't a great idea, because then people have to cross Dixie. I can tell you, the police have told me numerous times, and it was during that time, we had mothers put their kids in the stroller and just push them out in the middle of Dixie Highway and start crossing the road. And I'm like, I don't believe what I'm seeing, but that's what they were doing. And then another time we fixed it with them renting Mount Holly's parking lot, but now the ORV park rents that until after the festival days. So the issue you need to keep in the back of your mind, I think, when you're coming up with a solution is, I don't think there's any more, I'm not aware of any more alternatives that could be deployed to provide additional parking. And so even if you think your festival can hold more people, you have to figure out, where do you put more cars? And the extra parking they used at the haunted house is gone. The extra parking they used at Mount Holly is occupied for the ORV park. I don't see any place else you can fit cars. Now, I had a meeting with Barry Bass today on a number of other contracts we're working on, and it came up in the discussion that he said, Bob, I got some buses. I said, buses? What the hell are you doing with buses? He said, well, they can't get any cops now, so they got a bunch of buses they used to use for bringing the recruits in that they didn't use. They all had low mileage. I bought 4 or 5 of them. And so he said, if you think it would help, we could park them on some of his property that he owns by ours, and then bus them in. And I mentioned it to Janelle today, and I said, I don't know if that even worked, because I'm not sure how we get from our property to the Renaissance Festival without going back out on Dixie. And I think the problem is, if Dixie's the problem and we're still putting the traffic on the problem, I don't know if this really fixes anything. So I said to her, I don't know what to do with it, but think about it over the weekend. I'm gonna see what you come up with. But I thought it was nice of Barry to offer that, and maybe there's some benefit, but we even thought, well, what if you came out on Grange Hall and went up the expressway and got off on 106? But as you said, when they get jammed up, it's from the Renaissance Festival to Grange Hall and south, around down Grange Hall and onto the expressway. And on the north, it's from the Renaissance Festival all the way up through the ramp onto the freeway.
I second that.
Yeah. No, I mean, I do go there on weekends and check it myself. Yeah, and so I said, I don't know what good it would do to take a busload of people from the township property parking, over at the gravel pit by the Mavis building, and then run them up the freeway and have them wait in line at the other end. So that's why I want everybody to think about this before you get together. Maybe there is some creative way we're missing, but what came out in the first two meetings was the only consistency that they had, that they all said, and frankly, I don't think any of us necessarily expected that, but neither I nor George wanted to preclude somebody from saying what they thought would actually fix it. And so that's the distilled version of what the meeting was that Jenny was with us, and then the subsequent one that we had with the police. I don't know, I have my own ideas how to fix this, but we need to keep in mind, we didn't ask the festival here. The festival's not in Groveland, and our ability to exert some changes on it is limited because we don't control it. Just that was the whole gist of everything.
Yeah, and then just generally, what I would say is and I want to hear from our audience members tonight, because it's a community issue and your input would be valued.
It'd be great discussion on your way to Florida.
Yeah. but one of the perspectives I have on the Renaissance Festival is that as we look in, we've had for decades now on our master plan, as a community, you have to say, okay, where am I going to have commercial, industrial, and where is the residential? And so we say, well, we have a 4-lane highway running through our township, so that would be the logical place if we're going to put businesses and industrial there. And so recently we've spent a lot of time trying to look at what is the vision for Dixie, so it doesn't look like to the south, where we just have businesses and curb cuts and traffic. We say, we don't want that. We want to keep a nice, spacious, rural look here. And so the Renaissance Festival is a large piece of property that's right on Dixie Highway. And so here's a use within that district that for the Renaissance Festival is 16 days out of the year. 16 days. The other 349 days, it's got probably some little traffic and stuff, but it doesn't have the crowds at the Renaissance. So we have 7 weeks, 16 days of operation on a parcel that if it was in someone else's hands, maybe it'd be businesses and 7-day-a-week traffic and noise. And so, so it's like, what? That's not to excuse the horrible traffic issue that happened this year and has happened in prior years, and we do need to work on fixing it. But I would like to find a way to fix it, because I think that for what we want to have up and down the Dixie corridor, that's a horrible impact for 16 days. But I think that if we can try to figure that out.
It's potentially detrimental the way it happens like that to even the other uses there.
Right.
And they had people going to the Fest that actually thought they were going to the festival, and people that go to the festival that thought they were getting into the Fest for the Jeeps. So it compounds itself.
Yeah, it needs to be fixed. I'm not at all saying that it's acceptable, because it's not. But I think we need to look at it is 16 days out of the year. And so I like the fact that we have a large tract of land in our district that's only 16 days of use, so just my kind of input on it. So I will, before I open this up for any comments or questions that we may have from our residents, anyone on the commission want to just comment, questions of Bob?
I have a couple questions. How many parking spaces do they have at the Renaissance Festival?
It's on the site plan, and I don't remember
I
off the top of my
didn't
head. I
see
thought it was like 5,700. I think. Is that labeled? They label it. When you see the site plan again, it'll be on there.
Yeah.
They label it by the sections, and then they give a total on the front page. I'm being honest, I don't remember. off the
When
top
I
of my
looked at
head.
it on a smaller version, it's something
Yeah.
else is hard to read.
Yeah, they've got it.
Okay.
I thought it was 5,700, but I might be wrong.
Pretty close.
Jenny, can you hear me?
Yes, who is this?
This is Jim Christopher. I forced to call in. My wife has car trouble.
Welcome, Jim.
Duly noted, you're here.
Yeah.
Hi. I came in at about the 12-minute mark.
Okay,
I missed some of this, but, and you may have to collectively bail me out if I'm way off base here. But in years past, when we had this hiccup, I was led to believe, and I believe it to be true, that there was some manner of consultant that was brought in to add his or her expertise to the issue.
What?
My opinion now, that from what I can tell from my contacts in the industry, apparently there is a traffic expert at Row Engineering. And I would be very interesting to see his calculations of minimums and maximums and recommendations based upon what he sees there in terms of parking, in terms of egress and ingress, and see what those calculations distill out in terms of closure points, which we had talked about in a couple of years past. What triggers what activities? I don't know if this was brought up earlier, but that right now is something that I would like to refer to. I'm not interested in the organization spending money fruitlessly, meaning the rent fair, but I think we need to appeal to some entity that has the requisite expertise.
well, Bob, help me out here, but that would be something we would require
Yeah.
of
And they
them
have-
to do.
They had done one, I don't remember the exact year, but they did one when it started being a problem. They hired a consulting firm. And I know Kathy's got it, but I certainly think if nobody thinks it's of value, whatever they did, because I don't remember it off the top of my head, you could require them to do another one. You're right, that could be a permit requirement.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's definitely something to consider because,
Actually, if you remember, the state trooper said, I think the company was called POGO. It's an acronym for something.
yeah,
like parking
something,
organization.
yeah,
Or something,
something.
but he said, they've used them in the past, they're really good. So maybe that's one that could be used, but he referenced that kind of thing.
Yeah, I mean, because at the end of,
Yeah,
Jenny, for what it's worth, I'm doing a little bit of consulting with a civil engineering firm. And when this reared its head, I asked them if we had the expertise in this one group. They said no, but they spoke highly of a person at Row Engineering.
oh, okay.
okay,
And actually, I think that's who the festival uses for their drawings.
Yeah.
It is.
yeah, okay,
Bob, you're right.
yeah.
Good,
I mean,
good.
And I think
bit of-
it- and I think that needs to be a precondition well in advance to August. So we have an opportunity for due diligence and ask questions of whatever learned individual is chosen. In my opinion, we're all guessing. We're not subject matter experts. And I think that's where we need to go.
I think it's a good idea.
yeah, agreed, Jim. I would, if there is this coming in January, the topic,
I would hope that she could get something ready for January, or
Yeah.
at least have a public hearing to get maybe a list of what the various members think she should have to supply,
yeah,
because I don't want to wait until March
right,
and then say, now here, you got 30 days to get it done. Some of this stuff, even those signs I talked about, take a while to get orchestrated through the sign department at the road.
Yeah,
Stuff don't
yeah,
happen overnight,
yeah.
believe me. It just takes a while. So I think she needs to get started on whatever the planning commission thinks she needs to provide as soon as possible. I don't anticipate in January, she'd have a finished plan and say, here it is. But I think there should be some submittal she's supposed to be bringing in, right?
By January 3rd.
By January 3rd, so you have something to look at, collect your thoughts, have an open discussion where you start saying, here's the things I think we want to see. Can you get this in line for February or whatever? If we're going to get this done before they open in August, we got to get going on it.
yeah, you're right, and I think this is an excellent suggestion, Jim. Because we need the experts to tell us, what
Jenny,
are the
it's an
viable.
it's a totally objective entity, which I think is important, not only to the community, but to Kathy too, that there's no tempers involved, no hard feelings. This is basically an equation, and God willing, that's the correct assumption. But again, I'm being repetitive. I think that's the way to go.
Yep. No, good input, Jim. And Jenny, did you have more questions?
No, that's all for now.
Jackie's good?
No questions at this time.
All right, Lynn, good?
Yeah, I'm good, but I do think they said here they had 8 more acres ready to be used. And
Couldn't get the cars.
yeah,
Again.
because they said
ask
mud,
why.
whatever.
Yeah.
That's part of the question tomorrow when she says they had 218, and I say, that's a light traffic load for you. Well, how did it get so bollocksed up with a light traffic load?
Right, right. All right. So I'm going to ask members of the audience if they'd like to give their input, but I'd like you just to identify yourself for our meeting minutes, just so we can keep track. So, but I would welcome anyone that wants to provide some input and your thoughts on this issue. I know it's problematic. Yes, sir.
Chris Pitcock, I live on Holdridge Road. I had a nice conversation with Amy Hillman at Holly Township today,
Okay.
and she was very informative. I'm supposed to get some information via her in the mail within the next couple of days.
She was at the meeting too.
We talked about, I did some investigating, online, and other municipalities is having the same issues, different states, Maryland, North Carolina, traffic horrendous, And in these articles, it was going to be addressed as far as attendance on a daily basis too. And it seems pre-COVID, we didn't really have major issues like we did this year. They seem to have a traffic pattern that kind of worked, and the flow worked pretty good. This year on a Sunday when I left early on the season, there was a wreck on Dixie by the ATV store, had that shut down completely. You couldn't go north. So I had to turn around Perry Road and go back, got tangled up in that traffic, being where I was, to get back to go south on Dixie, and that was one of the things that happened. And then the other time coming from the south, coming back north to go home, I'm all the way down by the campground just to get home, which is ridiculous. I mean, what happens if we have an emergency? How do you get things moving? How much more traffic is the ORV park adding to this situation during Renaissance too? I mean, is there studies being done on that? Because the one weekend, and I'm not sure if it was the second to the last or last weekend, when they had that Ford Fest, that was one of the worst weekends, that I've seen as far as this year. So I don't know.
Yeah, it was, we all are in agreement. It was a bad year.
The only statement I would caveat to what he says, this has happened before.
Well, and I've only lived
2 or
here
3 times.
Well, yeah.
I've only lived here for 10 years, so I'm going with the 10-year period. And like I said, pre-COVID, it seemed the last couple of years prior to that, it seemed like it worked a little better. I don't know what the attendance.
We had about 4 years ago, I think, was when they paved I-75. And it was
Oh,
during
yeah.
the festival, and that was probably the worst. I think it was 4 or 5 years. Because they pushed it all on the Dixie Highway, and it made a huge mess. In the past, though, when they finally kind of got their stuff together with the other parking lots and that, we actually changed and said, it's worked for a few years. We'll give you a 3-year permit. Just give us the data. And I will guarantee you this, no good deed goes unpunished. Because once we got a 3-year permit, the very next year it was a mess again. So I said, there's no more 3-year permits, they're all 1-year permits. Okay, so we've had a history of these
Well, and
potentially being fixed for 2 or 3 years and then it falls up again.
And what seems to happen is they always have the straw that breaks the camel's
Yeah.
back. It's
There's
just,
no plan B.
yeah, so you say, well, okay, let's plan for this. And then, some blip happens, I-75, and they redirect it and everything just tumbles like a house of cards,
I just got one more question.
Yes, sir.
Why can't they add another driveway going in on the north part of their the big parking area?
That was one
That
of the
was one of the
suggestions.
suggestions.
And we had said, I don't think there's any opposition from our planning committee. They tried saying they asked for that and we turned it down, but I don't remember it in 26
yeah.
years. You don't remember it, neither does Chief Mason.
No, I specifically said to Kathy, I'm getting old, and so there's a lot I don't remember. But I do not remember that. And she's like, oh, I'm sure that, we've got site plans and then I'll just dust it off. Well, we haven't seen it. So I do not remember that request.
That was
but
one of the
against it.
suggestions, and we thought that's probably a good one.
Yeah.
It's like you said, it's 16 days of hell.
Yes.
For you all.
I mean, I become a hermit during those weekends because you can't get in, you can't. And the reason I'm here is I hear rumors about trying to put an exit in on Old Ridge Road off the Medicine property. And when you look at the traffic flow, traffic coming in comes in off exit 106, or it comes in off Grange Hall Road, or it comes in north and south on Dixie. You aren't going to fix anything by making loops on side roads. All it's going to do, Old Ridge Road is always a mess anyway, because it's gravel drains. Then if you start talking thousands of people coming down the road, I mean, I decided I had to go to the hardware when the Renaissance Festival was on. Well, first of all, I waited 15 minutes before I could turn right on Dixie. And I already pre-thought that, well, I won't have a problem with this. I'll just go to the hardware and I'll go down and I'll get on the entranceway, come off 106 and come back south. Guess what? The ramp on 106. And of course, then you got one lane on the right-hand side ready to go into the festival. And of course, nobody wants to wait that long, so they'll drive in the left lane, then they'll go up and turn their blinkers on. And but you aren't going to solve it by using loops around outside of the main arteries.
They're still
You
gonna
could
go
stop.
to Dixie. They're still
Yeah.
gonna.
Yeah.
They're still on Dixie now. I mean, most of the things I've thought about suggesting would cost more money than anybody wants to deal with. Like 6 lanes on Dixie Highway for 4 miles. And 2, right, I mean, dreams.
That's probably 50 million.
You like that?
Most of them I've thought about. So what it gets back to for me is stay away from the loops and Perryville Road, Laring Road. Of course, Laring Road has 2 ways to go. We have a dead end road that's almost a unimproved road. One way, if 2 cars want to pass each other on Old Ridge Road, one of them's usually got to stop or move over. And you're talking about moving 1,000 cars out of that south lot. It's ridiculous. I see the only solution is kind of what Bob's talking about. We need traffic management on those access and exit ways. You can get decent traffic management. I know I've thought about things of controlling the number coming in, but that's a difficult thing to do because of the weather affects it. Everything affects
That's
how their attendance is.
difficult because the tickets are not date stamped.
Right.
That's been an issue that I've brought up before, because if you date stamp the tickets, then you can limit the daily attendance to roughly 27,000 and the whole damn thing works. When you don't do that, what happens is people buy a ticket for the festival, for 23 or 25 bucks, something like that. And you buy it for you, your wife, your kids, and then you say, damn, that festival's almost over and I haven't gone yet. And that's why they all come the last 3 weekends. I gotta use it before the tickets go good.
I thought of that solution, but I didn't know legally whether it could be done.
I can't do it.
That's how I,
That's
how I
all.
could do it.
Yeah.
That what I'm telling you, I can't do it because, and it's very frustrating for me. People, after the festival, I get all the calls and I keep on telling them. First of all, you do understand, the festival's in Holly, not in Groveland. We only have the front part of the parking lot and I don't control the attendance there. That has been an issue all along. And so I am sympathetic to what it is. Yes, I won't go around there normally. I'll go a couple times. When I go up north to my cottage, I'll come back to check on it, but it's usually later in the day. And the worst part of the traffic's kind of dissipated by that. It's maybe 5 o'clock or something like that.
You got a little power to affect it. They got the most power to affect it. You got the worst results of it,
Yes.
And-
That's it, whether we sit,
Yeah, it's, and
essentially.
just, can we have your name for the record, please,
Carl Hopquist.
Carl? If I can just ask a question, do you mean when you say traffic control or traffic management? What are you thinking of when you say that? Like traffic lights, stop signs? I mean, I don't,
I'm thinking of things that Bob already mentioned. I'm thinking of lighted signs that in other words, with a little bit of foresight, you can essentially predict what's going on ahead with these signs. So you can stop the flow of traffic, you could say full, you could say the wait is 2 hours and they'll turn around and go back.
right,
All kinds of stuff. That's what I'm talking about.
Okay.
As well, I actually think that most of the time, the sheriff's department does a decent job of getting those people in and out of there. But it's still bad. I mean, it's really bad, but they're doing what they can do.
the signs they had were used, if you recall, like one used to be right by the fire station. There was one
Yeah,
on each
I remember
exit,
that.
one by the fire station, one up on the north end.
Yeah.
And they would put things like, hey, this is the Highlander weekend or whatever
Mhm.
whatever they call that weekend, right? And then they would be able to, if it got backed up, say, the park is full, come another day.
I don't ever remember seeing that.
Yeah, they had.
I mean, like,
I had-
first
I had
20
a close
years, that's
example.
never happened.
I've had it close, but the problem is, when they don't own the sign, they can't affect that change immediately. Which is why we said, you need to buy the damn signs. That way, when it gets to a certain point, you can change the message right away that says, the park is full.
So we have two possible solutions to, well, three actually. The traffic control could improve. That could be improved. There's no question about it. Because you get more people out there and they do a decent job if you get enough people. And so, and your idea of the signage is a situation. And this next solution could be the stamp tickets, like you say, that control the kind of numbers are going in there. I'm saying that so that, you know, when you get over there with the Hollywood planning group, you got some ideas, which you probably already have many more than I do, but that's beside the point. But it's gonna, obviously, this is gonna come to a head and somebody's gotta make a decision
Yes,
or procrastinate again.
well,
so we had someone in gentleman in the back, you had some comments?
Well, I've lived in Holly, I've done Holders for 20 years, my name's Ken Hoover. And we've just had issues every year pretty much, and by putting an outlet on the Holdridge, I think is just idiotic. I mean, they have so much Dixie Highway frontage and they have I-75 frontage. I brought this up, I've been to several meetings, Groveland and Holly. I brought it up to Holly Township, they laughed at me. Why can't they put an exit on I-75? Everything's over. It's done. It's out of your hands. You have minimal traffic on Dixie. Everything goes on I-75. It's over. I mean, there's no more issues. But they didn't even want to. I forget the word, but they didn't even want to hear me.
they're called seasonal exits.
Yeah, like they had it
We
in the
talked about that a
past.
long time
I mean,
ago.
why can't they do that, Bob?
Because they're extremely hard to get MDOT to agree on. They're
Well, I
rarely
mean,
do.
if you guys push them, Holly Township, say that you guys are reaping the benefits, we're getting all the, you know, it's hurting us and it's helping you.
I understand what you're saying, and believe. And
You
we
push it to
suggested
them.
seasonal access port a long time ago, and I think they were about 400,000 then. But what everybody says, they're almost impossible. to
Yeah,
get to
as
that.
much money as they're making, they can help fit the bill for that. And like Carl said,
I
by
agree.
putting them out onto Laring Road or even Holdridge, they're still gonna go right out to Dixie. So what's that? That's gonna just push the area, you know, a half mile down the street. It's still gonna have the issue, it's just gonna be spaced out. So now, instead of coming home and have to stop one time for 20 minutes, I'm gonna stop here for 10, I'm gonna stop here for 10, here for 10, and then I can turn down my road so I can get home from work.
Well, you won't be able to turn on Holdridge because the idiot people that
Yeah.
drive would take
I mean, you
two,
don't.
both
wanna
lanes
tell
on
me-
Holdridge to get out.
There's
I
been
mean, we
several
have no way to
times
get home.
I've had to drive on southbound line lanes going north, or vice versa, to turn on my road, about a mile. Like if a cop's coming, I'm getting a ticket, but I'm not waiting 2 hours to get home from work. I mean, when I get done working, I want to go home and relax, take a shower. I don't want to sit in traffic for 2 hours. And
I believe they also had an ambulance a couple years ago that had to go on up the southbound lanes, which.
Yes.
I mean, it happens all the time. And I like the festival. I don't want to see it move because I enjoy it. We go occasionally and they just gotta, I think her name's Kathy.
Yeah.
She's always dragged her feet on everything. Every time she needs to get something into Holly Township, she never does on time. I mean, we've seen it for years. So, I mean, we gotta get stuff going and have somebody else take over Kathy's job. I mean, I know you guys can't push that, but.
In
you see where I'm
fairness,
coming from.
I have to say that Kathy's been the better of the managers they've had to work with.
I agree.
And I understand what you're saying, but I think her problems are directly the result of the guy that owns the festival.
You know, one of the.
Her hands are kind of tied to what she, yes, Jim Peterson. Her hands are kind of tied to what he'll agree to do. And so Kathy, my experience has been, she's generally been better to work. I've had 3 or 4 managers there, and she's better than any of them, but I think her hands are limited.
Well, we still have that same problem
I
of
agree.
traffic.
I
But
agree.
So that's what I'm saying.
But if you put another manager in,
No,
I don't think that's gonna
I
fix it.
agree with you. I totally agree. I'm just saying.
it's gotta
that
come from the
she-
boss.
But I think I think a point to take away from that is when you have the discussion, I agree with Jim saying we need a traffic study, but I would also say we want a traffic expert to give us an opinion on a seasonal exit off of
I
I-75.
think that's valid.
You know, just
Because,
say-
because again, if Hollywood required from them,
Yep,
enforce the issue. I can't ask for that.
I know.
They have to ask for that. It would fix it all, because I don't think anybody would give a damn if the traffic backed all the way up to downtown Detroit on that one lane.
Well, let's find out.
Yeah.
Jenny,
One thing.
Excuse me. Yeah, Jim, go ahead.
yeah, I'm sorry to interrupt everybody. I have 4 observations and I can't write them down, so here goes. You may know that in the summer, I virtually live at Pine Knob. With all the entertainment that they've had across all manner of genres, I've never seen on Sashabaw Road, which is not as, let's say, easy in, easy out in streaming of traffic. I've never seen the issues there in all the years I've been going to Pine Knob that we've had it at the Renaissance Festival. They don't have a ton of signage. As this gentleman said, I think his name was Carl, they have excellent traffic management there. Even though they're young kids, they're trained, they don't screw around. So that's one observation. Second observation to the second member in the audience, that gentleman's right on the money. There was an event-specific entry into the palace off of the entrance ramp to 75 from Updike. That worked flawlessly. Another observation is, and I'm going to ask Lynn to chime in on this, is I think Lynn and I are the 2, besides yourself, elders, spokespeople on the Planning Commission. I don't ever remember seeing anything brought to my attention regarding another entry or exit in recent history from the Renaissance Festival. And my 4th point, which I think we're a little stymied on, but this is equally as important, and this is my subject matter, is, you know what? We need collectively among the 2 townships, do these people have a disaster recovery plan? And I'm talking about active shooter, something going crazy there for traffic and people management. Those are all really responsible things that a group like this should have. They have it at Pine Knob. I did some cursory research on this 4 or 5 years ago. Pine Knob's got 15,000, I'm going to say capacity, and I can't remember how many, I think 7,800 parking spots, I think. I've got all that at my home. But all these points that I've just mentioned, especially the last one, that's equally as important. Is what do they have if some nut pulls out a sword and decides that he's a swashbuckler and wants to scare somebody, or some other nut wants to start shooting people up? That all affects what we're talking about, especially traffic.
Jim, we did, was it last year or the year? It was before COVID. We did have them put together an emergency evacuation plan for just that reason. We said, one, we still maintain you got too many people there. But in the event that you got to get these people off the property quickly, you've got to have a plan in place.
That's right.
You've seen it, Jenny? I'm not aware of that. I'm sorry.
I am.
Yeah,
I agree with Ginger.
yeah, they did put a plan together. They apparently did some training, but again, I don't know that they did it for the 2021 season, but they did it, I think, for the 2019 season.
Okay, I will find that somewhere in our files. I was unaware. My apologies, everyone.
Oh, no. It's something that they need to highlight every year, that they are training, they've got it updated.
Whether they did it in the past or not, if PC thinks they need to do that going forward,
Exactly.
it needs to be part of the
Yep.
discussion. One thing I don't think we can do is let's not assume that anything we did before is automatically being done, because that's part of what got us into the jackpot this year, where she said, oh, I couldn't get that, I couldn't get that, we didn't do that, and she's done this several times, so.
Yeah. Yep.
I think you need to, if it's a good idea, it's a good idea, and put it in there,
Yep.
And require it.
and
Yeah.
require it, yeah.
So whatever,
We have an objective checklist. They're all checked off, or she doesn't get her permit.
exactly. Okay. Yes, sir.
Everybody, the tow truck is finally here. If I'd like to depart the meeting if that's acceptable at this time.
All right, it is time. Thank you for your input, Jim.
All right,
Okay,
everybody,
Jim, you're-
thanks. I'm sorry for the inconvenience.
No problem. I have a gentleman in the back.
I'm George Bowram, I live on Holdridge Road. I've lived here probably more than anybody in this room actually, but my wife's raised on that road, and I'll guarantee you that everybody that lives on Holdridge Road that is here, their property backs up to a wetland. Renaissance is totally surrounded by wetlands. Right now, that parking lot they opened up a couple of years ago is less than probably 20 or 30 yards from 50 to 75 yards of wetlands. Anyway, they could get out of there without massive filling of wetlands. And I mean, it would be probably quarter to a half a mile without buying out somebody property to get another exit, but they still would have to go across wetlands. And that goes all the way to the expressway and actually goes underneath the expressway. Holdridge Road was built on a swamp. Anybody here can tell you that. It has been built up since I've there. The road has been built up at least 3 feet. And it still goes to pot during the year, and they still bring in these big old gravel trucks and fill the holes, and a month later, they're right back. So I don't know any place Renaissance could get another opening. I mean, like everybody here, I've had problems getting in. To try to come home from church in Holly at 1 o'clock, and you get to Grange Hall Road, and that's where you go. I've had relatives come visit from Ortonville. They come up Trip Road. They got a solid line of traffic. They can't even get across the whole Ridge Road. They won't let them in to go across. I've had the same problem going out. I try to go out and make a left turn. Nobody will let me in. But I'm usually driving a big vehicle. I just go up and put my nose in there until somebody lets me. Like everybody here, I have to run up the southbound lane to get home too. Which is what you gotta do.
So I have a question. We have asked Kathy over the years to continue to increase the Oakland County Sheriff's, Bob has said, go right to the Sheriff's Department, have them tell you the number of people.
One of the
And
things
that,
we change.
and have you found that are they helpful, the officers that they have out there?
Personal opinion, they wouldn't know the truth if we come up and kick them in the rear end. They have not filed for their operational permit as of yesterday to operate next year, which was supposed to have been in October. I was just in the offices yesterday.
But as far as the Oakland County Sheriff's Department directing traffic, have,
I've
We-
got no problem with that.
Okay.
They've always been, I'm courteous to them, they're
Okay.
courteous to me. I ride motorcycle, I go through them, wave at them,
Okay.
tell them thank you and stuff like that. And they've always been very courteous,
okay,
very polite, doing their job like police usually do, should do.
okay.
But like I say, our biggest problem has been getting in. After we're out.
Right.
Out of curiosity, do they have a officer at your road?
No.
Never.
Okay,
That was
because
one.
we've asked them at, both you asked them at that meeting and I asked them at the second one.
yeah.
You guys need more people because one of the things we changed the last time we had a problem is, I'm not asking Renaissance Festival how many troopers or deputies you need. I'm doing what Pine Knob does, and that is the sheriff, you tell me how many you need. That's how they came up with 13. And we have asked them at both meetings, do you need more deputies? And both times they've said no.
Right.
So that's why I'm curious if they had anybody at Holdridge Road, which if they had one, that would make it easier to get in and out. So
They don't need one if they open the road.
Trip road too, as far as that goes, putting an officer there to help people get in and out of Trip road onto Dixie too.
yeah, I was on Trip Road once and it was backed up.
Yeah, but you can't get from Trip Road across them.
No, I understand. That's why I was asking if you actually had an officer there. Because I don't remember where they were all stationed.
I have seen the traffic myself back all the way up Grange Hall Road to the expressway.
Yeah.
And let's say from the north all to the expressway too.
And there's a gentleman here that had,
Oh, go ahead. You wanted to say something about that? Paul Keller, I live on Holdridge as well. So one question is, do they have an individual capacity already set for a daily attendance?
No.
They do not at all.
No,
Okay.
and I have suggested that multiple times.
Because if there was, would there be a legal correlation to how many individuals could be in there to how many cars?
There's a correlation.
Parking spaces, because if you just do general math, 5,700 parking spaces, right? And say
They know
have-
roughly how many are in the average car. I don't remember what it is, but they do know. I think it's 3 or 4.
So if there's 3 or 4, so 3 times 5,700 is what, 17,100? That would work just fine.
Yeah.
But you get how many cars coming in there with one person and
Well, yeah, but they do, I know she has numbers on what the average is, and it surprised me, it was more than I thought. But part of it is, a lot of people, 2 things also happen there, we found out, a lot of people get there early in the morning because they don't want to wait in line forever, so they get there right when it opens. And there's an influx of people then. Then what happens is a lot of those people that have spent the day walking around, seeing whatever they want, decide to leave around 2:30 to 3:30.
right.
And when they leave, the second wave of people are coming in to go there at 3 o'clock and stay until like 7, I think, when they close. I think that's what it is. So that's one of the other points where the traffic gets all jammed up. There is the only statistic, and I had tried to get them to change this, but that's the number I was referring to. Chief can tell you about it if you ask him. The NFP number, the National Fire Protection number, is off of a formula from a category. And I said, I think you're using the wrong number. And at the time, Steve was here and we said, we think you should use this other number. They were very adamant, no, that's the right number. We think they can hold 32 to 34,000 people. Well, and I don't think they can.
Yeah.
Yeah.
One other thing, I think like one of my greatest concerns with this, and I know you said like it's nice that it's only 16 days a year, but one of my greatest concerns is for a lot of these other neighbors here that live, our road's what, about 3/4 of a mile long?
Yeah.
Some of the neighbors that live at the end and they're gonna hit that traffic in the afternoon going out, it's gonna take 45 minutes for them to get from their house just to Dixie Highway. And that is a huge concern as far as even getting an ambulance in there to get somebody back out again or anything like that. If we need, we do have elderly neighbors. Also another concern is trash in our front yards. I don't know if you've ever seen the parking lot after Renaissance Festival. We are the last house before Holdridge. Every one of those people that's drinking in there and in their cars are going to be throwing their beers out onto our property before they go hit the main roads. So that was a huge concern for me. And we have young kids too, that I don't want to have to board up in the house for 8 weekends a year.
Public urination, that's gonna be an issue. because they're stuck in traffic with nowhere to go. On Holdridge.
Yeah,
Well, I'm not a traffic expert and I'm not defending, any of the proposals that have been put forth by the police, but their point was that based on their experience with larger venues, that the traffic would be moving if you were to expand it, so that you had if you went from 2 to 5 exits and entrance, you wouldn't see people sitting in their cars waiting. It would keep a flow going. So I'm not defending it. I'm not
No.
supporting it. I'm just saying that's what they are
One
representing.
of my biggest questions though is they have so much frontage on Dixie Highway. Why can't they put another exit, like for the back lot there? They have the entrance that comes in kind of right by the office there. And then swing back and there's a lot of space to the south of that exit there or that entrance there. That they could put another loop through and have that traffic doing that. And like somebody else said with like DTE, or I think Jim said it with DTE, they have people directing traffic all the way through. And that keeps the flow of traffic going and going and going. So, and I know it's hard for you guys because you guys don't regulate all that back there. But it stinks that it's your residents that are the ones that are getting, crapped on.
I think the difference with DTE, like Jim was saying, is DTE, everybody goes at one time, everybody leaves at one time. Here, it's just going like this all day long.
Yeah.
So it's totally different. It's like apples and oranges.
Yeah.
In my mind.
No, that's a good point.
So there is no real solution, really. That's why we're here today, right?
Yeah, I love the seasonal ramps.
Their proposed exit on the property of the Renaissance owns on Holdridge Road is just a little over, maybe 50, 75 feet from the crest of a hill. Now, if you go like the speed limit, some have suggested is 45. The Holly Township master planning thing says they need 500 foot of clear vision for their exit. I know this is a Holly Township problem, but using them numbers, the only place they got to come out, they got about maybe 50 foot of vision if they cut trees, because the shoulder from the fence line is full of brush.
I mean, I don't know, but it had been my thought anyway, that if one of the solutions was to have an exit or exit on Holdridge, it would be manned all the time by police officers, much like Dixie Highway. I don't think.
Then they got this great big wetlands. It's like in back of Scott, which is my next door neighbor, is, I would say 200-300 yards across from his property to Renaissance. Now, how are they going to get across that wetlands without stopping the flow of water? And which is the major drain from Mount Holly in the spring. They pump the water from Mount Holly into the ditch along Dixie. The culvert across Holdridge Road can't keep up with it. It flows over top of the water onto Paul's property. And if they stop that wetlands any time up, Paul's going to be flooded along with 3 or 4 other houses and Dixie Highway.
Understand, and I, nor any other member, I can say this confidently, on the planning commission, have the engineering expertise to understand how to solve that. But if one of the solutions was do an exit on Holdridge, they would be required to do a site plan, which would require engineering. And then we have an engineering consultant in the township that would review it and say that that's good or bad, or it's.
And because of what he's saying, it probably, I'm guessing, would have to have a DEQ permit.
Exactly,
Wetlands.
exactly.
Oh,
My
yes.
son
Yes.
comes across a wet pond in his backyard, you get a DEQ, as I went to Lansing with him to get it. To make sure that it wasn't gonna screw something else up, so my guess is with what you're describing.
I've been back there several times. I go back there in the spring. And that main drain through there will be 20 foot wide and 2-3 foot deep.
I'm just guessing, that I've not seen it, but
Yeah.
I believe, I'm just saying,
Yeah.
I'm assuming that would probably take
I've
a DEQ.
invited George to come out, and I'll take you back through there and show him personally. I have a lifted golf cart to go.
You gotta watch, George wanted to go in the ORV park once with me. We got stuck on
It's
the
only-
hill. I remember an hour and a half to get the fire department to get me out of there.
I was there.
No, but I mean, those are great points, and absolutely, you know, there's a lot of hurdles that would have to be jumped to try to do this, so. Any other comments, questions?
Yeah, I got one.
Yes, sir.
Yeah, I'm gonna own the property that they're gonna be running. I'm Scott Saul, living on Holdridge. My property is gonna be where they're gonna be running that exit from the back and then down the side of it. My property value is gonna be shot down along with the pain, of course, with the traffic. And it's all wetlands back there. I lived there 27 years. I hunt back there. And I don't see how they can make a road back there without covering wetlands.
Holly Township does not allow a private road.
And this is on Holly Township too, 4 years ago. They extended that parking lot.
Private road is usually defined as a road that's actually servicing some houses, but not part of the county road system. This actually would be, I think, considered a driveway.
Oh, yeah.
Okay, so I don't think it would fall under that, but I'm not just telling you what you're saying, because I think you talked to me, I think.
Yeah, I did.
I'm just saying that I don't think that rule applies to it because it's a driveway. But the other issues about going across the wetlands are all valid, and I don't know the answer to that.
Yeah, because I know that property probably better than they do, and it is very wet and it would just be a mess.
It is
My
classified
property
as a
value would
wetland.
drop by tens of thousands of dollars by having a road on the back side and on the other side.
Look at the Southhouse period.
And
Literally, none of us.
I talked to
We never
Kathy
saw
Parker, and she told me that this year was the biggest year ever they had a festival. And she said it was 280 to 300,000.
Yeah.
Now you know why I questioned the 218.
Yeah.
And email.
Well,
They let
I have
everyone
one on
in,
the
they don't know the
website,
numbers that were in
262.
there. Not kidding.
280 is like 17.
All right, all right. So there was a gentleman in the back here.
Yeah,
You had a-
Bob Laundrie, I live on Holdridge also. They,
So where's
I hear all
where's
this that
the
they
cover there?
plan to put a driveway out on Holdridge. Wasn't a driveway for the rural farm area? Renaissance is not a farm and they're not a homestead. So the driveway issue, how do they even?
I'm sorry.
Well, it's just how it would be classified by the,
But it's not either one, so that, how could you put a driveway for a festival
But
operation?
it's not considered a private road generally speaking.
Right.
Private roads are like when a subdivision,
Okay.
a builder builds 10 houses on a road he put in, it's not dedicated to the, we have the same rule in Groveland. We don't allow private roads anymore because they're all a problem. But what they were was, so what you have to do now in Groveland, if you want to build a subdivision and put 15 houses on it, we'll let you pay to put a completely improved paved road in to Oakland County spec standards, and then you get the right to give it to them for free. That's the only kind of road you can build. Or what some people have done in the past, they had private roads, Wisman's one of them. It's a gravel road that houses are built on with parcels along the side. Those are considered roads. I think this would just be considered a service driveway.
yeah.
That's all I'm saying. It won't be, I don't think it would be under the category of a private road.
I was told today by Amy that the road commission would be involved too.
Oh, I'm sure.
Oh, 'cause
they would
they're
have to, because
accessing,
You
yeah.
can't tie into any road and Holdridge is a
No, I mean,
public
as
road.
far as the road itself leading to Holdridge. is what
Yeah,
she told
yeah,
me.
well, because one of the things that came up in the discussion was, if you're gonna put all that extra traffic on it, we said, well, you're gonna have to do maintenance because the gravel pit, Leone has to put gravel and stuff down when the road commission tells them they need to do it, and they pay for it. I'm assuming if this happened, what was discussed at the meeting was they would have to also sign a maintenance agreement to either chloride it extra times or gravel it or whatever. So no doubt the road commission would have to be involved in it. And you can't even tie a driveway to a road without a road commission permit. My house has a horseshoe driveway in front. I had to get a permit for 2 culverts that they told me what size I had to put in. to get my driveway to come out on Groveland Road. So everybody has to do that, anywhere you are in the county, if you want to have your house tied in with access to the private road, you have to get a road commission.
I'm not talking about coming to Holdridge. I'm talking about the road itself is what she told me.
Yeah, that's it. And what was discussed was that they would have to do some kind of a maintenance agreement with them because the extra traffic they put on would tear up the chloride and be harder on the road. And they would be required to put whatever maintenance in. So if she told you that, that was discussed and that was brought up that, well, you can't just put a bunch of cars on, you gotta do some extra maintenance. That's not uncommon where activities have high volumes of use on a public road that normally wouldn't get it. To tell the applicant, well, if you want to do this, you're going to have to pay for it. And that's basically what Holly must have done originally in the road commission with Leone's landfill site when he was using it for the gravel business. They made him, I know they signed something that said they got to put the maintenance on it.
Okay.
They should have signed it.
Yes, sir.
That may be true.
Can I just say, what was the result on the Cat Parker telling me 280 to 300,000 when you guys are almost 100,000 off?
280 to 300.
Oh, the attendance, yeah.
Well, like I said, I was out a good part of the day, but I got a message late at the end of the day that showed me and that said 218. I can't believe that. And then I pulled up the document she gave us that they're using for motions that says 2022 is going to be 280,000 plus. So I told her tomorrow when I get in, my question back to her on her email is, where'd you get the 218 from?
Right.
Because there's two questions. Either the 218 is wrong and it's 280, or if it's 218, then why was there such a colossal failure of traffic management on a year that was by their standards would have been a pretty light season?
I think they forgot.
The
Carol.
website even said 262.
Yeah.
So one of the things she has to typically do, and the reason this was ahead of time, and we don't have it, typically when they make their annual permit in spring, they bring us a sheet that says, here's the attendance by day for the entire event. And that's when we actually have a number. This is only coming about because we prodded it for, well, how many people actually showed up on this festival? And the number I was given when I got back to my office, it was about 4:30, was 218. And I said, I have a hard time believing that because that would have been a light festival for them. So it's either it was 218 and you sent everybody home and nobody was there to do anything, or it was 288 or whatever, a number, or 262 or whatever number it is.
She gave us
It's
the
some
exact
number
number.
anyway.
Yeah.
She gave us the exact number for 2019, for 2020,
Exactly.
to the T.
Yeah, yeah.
number for 2020 and 2020.
Yeah. 218 is in there.
Specifically
Something
told me this
wrong.
was literally
That's
such
not
a
right.
pandemic. The busiest year ever was 21.
I think so.
More people wanted to get outside.
And that's what I think it was. I think the number.
Oh, yeah.
280.
Her numbers say this is the lowest year in the last 5 years.
Yeah, no,
That's the numbers that she gave us.
I think we can all be in agreement. It's wrong. So we'll get the right number, but it's not right. Yeah. Yeah. Girl, you had the comment?
Yeah,
I
a couple of years ago, I thought about it.
4 o'clock back to Green Trawl Road to get in
To get
there
in?
on some weekends.
I agree.
Now, they close at what, 7?
7, I think is when they're
Now,
done.
they're at Green Trawl Road sitting in bumper to bumper traffic,
And they ain't even
waiting
in.
to get in there. How long are they gonna have in there?
Right. Yeah.
And they're so packed because they can't expand that festival because it's all wetlands around them. They can't grow anymore and they keep bringing more people in. There's gotta be a limit. I've been to other Renaissance in different states and, they were wide open and had no problem.
They're usually farther out in the country.
Yeah.
With a bunch of
Well,
brown fields
yeah,
around them, and somebody doesn't
yeah.
care if the road's backed up for 5 miles because there ain't nobody on it anyway.
Exactly.
And I know all of those things.
Right.
This is kind of interesting because everything that's being said here today has been said and over, and we just, it's frustrating for me, for people to say, why can't you get done? And I know they don't like it when I say it because I tell them, well, it's in Holly. I don't control it.
Yeah.
And the very things you're suggesting are the very things I've suggested repeatedly over the years.
Yeah.
But it's like me being able to say, you live in Holly and I'm gonna come and tell you, here's how you're gonna do your property. You're gonna tell me, go mind your own business, right? I don't have to do anything you say in Groveland.
Right.
Honey, that. The most encouraging thing was that they all came to the meeting with us. And I think they tried to take honest comment and hear what was going on, and I take that as a positive, because of the past, we've never really been able to get that far.
Agreed. This was the most cooperative they've been with us over the issue.
But if we don't find some way to fix it,
Right.
we're going to have the exact same thing every year.
Yep.
Except it'll get a little worse.
Yeah.
Can't you deny them the permit then to operate?
I can't,
They can.
the only permit I'm really giving them
What
is
about
you
your
can park on
parking?
your property.
Parking
And even if I told them they couldn't, I'm just telling you. I've gone to court for this township for 25 years. I've never lost a court case because I make sure we got our ducks in a row. You're not going to go to court and say, Your Honor, I told him he can't park on his damn property and that's the way it is. And the judge is going to say, you got to be kidding me. In order to stop them, we would have to have, I think, Holly join us and say, I'm not saying this is the answer because I don't know. If they came back and said, we just don't see how to make this work any other way, you're going to have to limit daily headcount. Then I think if both Holly and us went to the court and said, Your Honor, we think it's unsafe for these reasons. We can't get it to work any other way. You have to cap daily attendance. Then I think you could get it done. And if not, I'd be happy to give you the name of the judge that says, that's okay, we don't care.
Yeah.
Because I don't think that's the case. But I can't do that. If I go to court and say, I want you to limit the Holly Festival in Holly, and all I got is some parking lots in the front, the judge isn't even gonna let me comment on it. It says, you're not even an interested party in it. It's like when two neighbors argue about, well, he's pushing snow onto my driveway and I want it on his. You're gonna have to solve it with him. The township don't do that. That's a dispute between two neighbors. In this case, it would be Holly Township has to request it. And I'd be happy to support them in that, because that's what I've asked for, but I can't initiate it. So if I try and stop it, I'm gonna guarantee you, there ain't gonna be a judge in the world that would do it. And even if we did it, they'll still park there. I can't, and the other thing is the road commission's made it clear, you can't tell somebody they can't use a public road. I get the same thing, I live on Groveland Road, and sometimes it gets very busy because when they're hauling stuff out of like Leone's pit, it depends where it's going. If somebody's east of them, they're buying a bunch of fill material out of there, and the shortest route from her pit to wherever they're going is down Groveland Road, we'll get a whole bunch of gravel trains for a couple of weeks. And people will say, well, what's gone? I can't tell them you can't use this public road. And I live on the road. I can't tell them, that's just the way it is. So you can't do some things legally. It will take, Holly has to be an integral part of what we do here, or it's not gonna get fixed.
Yeah. Yeah.
I
And
don't think Holly has much interest because when they added that back half of that parking lot. And 10 years later, they added about 40 acres more and they went off a 10-year permit. And Holly specifically told them they couldn't use it. And I was out there taking pictures. They used the whole thing immediately.
I remember
Holly
something about
didn't care
that.
about it.
Well, I'll say this, when I mentioned this, when I first talked to George, is a different supervisor than I had, so. When I talked to him and told him what was going on, he said, well, I don't know, we don't have any complaints, you get all of this. Yeah, okay, George, I need some help here, I'm getting all
It
of
seems like Holly will do nothing about it.
But he said, I've got a whole new planning commission, except for one guy. And I think they'll be receptive to it, and he didn't balk at coming to the meeting. So as I say, the one bright issue in this is, he understands what's going on, and he wants to fix it.
yes.
And he showed up to the meetings. He didn't
Yes.
walk away from it.
Yes.
From the other ones, I had to go over there and say, can I talk to you about how to speed this up, this message, and how we need to fix it? And then, yeah, I know, we just don't want to do that.
Yeah, no,
That's all got done.
I was encouraged that we finally had some participation from Holly, because we've not had that in the past, so that part was a great
So
part.
to answer your question, I can't, even if I stop the permit, they're just gonna park there. It's not gonna- That might make everybody feel good, but it ain't gonna do anything. It's got to be
When
done.
I
by-
asked George also, he told me, I said, we're gonna have a meeting on this, the road that's gonna come through around my house, and he told me, no, not at all.
Really?
Yeah.
Okay.
That's what he told
Again,
me.
I'm not disputing it. I'm just saying, maybe that's where the rumor that it's a done deal, is said. It was not me. If you want to know what I say, you can check. I'm very upfront about putting exactly what I say on videos. It's on the cable channel and it's on YouTube. You can hear exactly what I said after the meeting.
Right.
Janelle,
I'm
you had
just
a
saying,
comment?
well, that's what he told me, then it felt like, we had no chance.
I
That's probably where that came from.
Okay, and I can't speak for that, 'cause I don't know, I wasn't there, I don't know what they said, right? He did, I think it's unfortunate, but I don't,
right,
I
Janelle.
can't comment on it.
Janelle,
I'm Janelle, you probably received my email today. Whether
Yes,
did,
thank you.
and it's there somewhere, so, you all know, well, you know me, you've got me documented. You all know the majority of my concerns, though, of course, the one that wasn't mentioned was simply just our ability to live our daily lives. I wanted to make a point about the, officers, because that was something that you had asked, if we had ever had problems. I do think it's important to bring up the point that they determine how many they need. And I have video because I was stuck in such bad traffic, and there were 2 officers. There were 3 lanes of traffic that started coming toward me.
this is Dixie.
This is on
Okay.
Dixie. So where I'm going with this, Jim mentioned himself, if we have proper traffic control, I do think that would solve a lot of these problems. I do not think we had it. If you look in your minutes, you will even know that I don't know if it was the sheriff or if it was the MSP, but they noted themselves. They did not have properly trained, or maybe they had newer people, something like that.
That's a problem, because what's happened is, and I'm sure everybody notices it, all of the state police agencies are down on recruits. The sheriff's down, I think it's 80 or 100 deputies. So what happens is the people that normally came to work the festival. So what the sheriff did is he went to a bunch of officers that I think have been working double shifts. He said, you're not going home yet. You gotta go work the festival on the weekend. And I'm just telling you, from what I heard, most of them didn't want to be there. So I'm not excusing it. I'm not saying it's right. But I think the reality is there's a shortage of police officers, and they were frankly pissed off to be there.
And I agree with you, Bob, but I think that's a root of a lot of this.
Yeah, because you don't want to get a bunch of lift when you're trying to get out.
Yes, so I do think that that's a major thing that we can tackle outside of directing all of this traffic onto residential roads. So I would personally suggest, I know you guys will be coming up with recommendations, but that's a big one. Maybe we mandate 20, and maybe it's not all police officers. I don't really know how traffic control is regulated or monitored, or how you find those individuals.
That might be hard.
You can do that.
Contracts with,
And-
contracts with the festival.
Okay,
So I'm just saying, I don't know if the sheriff, I don't know, it might work. I don't know if the sheriff's willing to say, well, I got 13 guys and you can add 7 of yours and we'll hope they all work together. I don't know.
You have influence.
No. not the
Yeah,
sheriff.
I don't know the answer to that either, but what I do know is I can show you videos of only 2 officers. And as far as you can see down 4 lanes of Dixie, and that is not what the agreement was. So the reality is that in itself could fix a lot of this. A second consideration, Bob mentioned that there are some buses that are potentially available. I don't know a solution, in my mind, I was trying to rack my brain with how could we solve this? Maybe it's south on Dixie, when people are coming north, there's somewhere that we can find that they park, they load up. Going north on Dixie is a lot easier. They would have to enter in, of course, at the festival, they'd have to stay in the right lane as best as they can and turn people out. Maybe that's an option. These are just some
That's what
preliminary
Barry
discussions.
was suggesting as an alternative. And the question I have, and I don't know the answer is, I don't know if getting them in the bus and then putting them in that same line of traffic, I don't know if that fixes it. is
But the
what I'm saying.
buses could stay in the right lane. Traffic festival, festival traffic is supposed to stay in the left lane.
Yeah.
Buses could potentially stay in the right lane. Could they still run into traffic?
Yeah.
Maybe,
Yeah.
but I think it's a possibility for us to investigate.
Well,
Second alternative there is, I do know that Holly has, on Holly's side, we know that we have no problem, I don't think, I can't speak for anybody, but I know for me, I have no problem going to Holly Planning Commission and addressing all of these same things. But the Renaissance Festival has an additional lot on Laring Road
Yes.
that could hold much more parking. So
I
let's,
think it's 12 or 15 acres.
hey, that's a lot of
Holly,
potential
Holly
parking.
has not let them use it. They're
Right,
And I
yeah.
know, so maybe we have to take that there. But I think that if we can look at some alternatives, you know, Jenny, I know you mentioned it's only 16 days. For you guys, you don't see that firsthand. You don't get almost run off the road trying to just to turn left down to your property. Now we're looking at those 16 days. We're already going to have those challenges as we've heard. I know that something needs to be addressed. I think everyone in here recognizes the traffic is a problem, right? We all know that. Those 16 days, how many of them do you think are really, really bad traffic days?
The last 3 weeks.
The last 3 weekends. So let's say maybe 6. So if we're considering now every day for a festival, you're going to route all those people in front of a residential dead end road. So now, instead of just those 6 days that maybe a few people in our township are inconvenienced, now you're inconveniencing an entire residential community. I think that's something that we need to reconsider. I do not think that Holdridge Road is the avenue that we should take. Someone mentioned this, but I encourage you to look at the map, look at the overlay, look at the aerial view. They have at least 2 more points. I know that one of the options was already at the north end of the property to make an entrance. I think it's a fantastic idea. There is also a possibility at the bottom, Paul was mentioning. It's very easily that we could create 2 loops that go in and out of there. You take a right turn in if you're coming from the north. You take a left out, we would need traffic control there. The south property, you take a left in and you make a right out of Dixie, which would be a very easy exit. I think there are some solutions here. I please ask that you do not make a knee-jerk decision just because we had a very difficult time this year with traffic.
Well, and I hear you. You know, it's easy for me to say 16 days because I don't experience one of them,
Right.
you know, right? So I totally appreciate the frustrations that you guys have been going through. But what I would say to my fellow commissioners here is that I think it's really important we have the expertise weigh in on this. I mean, because I'll have an idea and
Because all of these other changes might have some value, but
Yeah.
if we don't have an established number on what can you actually hold it?
Yeah,
And
yeah.
how many cars do
Yeah.
you actually
Yep.
need for that many people?
I-
That's where it starts before you can say, I can move them in and out of anywhere, really.
And I
yeah,
agree.
yeah, it didn't go anywhere, but my point was in the meeting, you start with attendance and then you back up and you say, okay, if you're going to have this many people, now how do we manage that? But they do I don't know how many people are showing up, you know, and so now I think I can handle, right? And then it breaks down because they can't. So, but again, that's Holly, and Holly in our discussions in the meeting I attended didn't seem very receptive to that, but we still need to continue to have dialogue. But I believe that we need, as a township here, to require them to get an engineering traffic study as part of, and not
A
just,
new one.
yeah, a new one, and say, you know, you need to tell us. And if we have wetlands, don't talk about, and we can't reasonably, you know, do anything with them, then don't look at that as a solution, you know, whatever it may be. But we need to have the experts who know and can look at this, give recommendations, and then see where we go from there.
Because somebody has to tell them, maybe you think you can hold 32 or 34,000, but we don't think so. Or even if you could hold 34,000, you only have parking that accommodates, I'm picking a number. I
Right.
don't know. That accommodates 27,000. So 27,000 is effectively your max.
Yeah.
Or whatever that number is.
Or you don't have traffic controls to manage that.
And the question that begs, which has never really been answered, is if they're really growing that much, what do you do next year if next year's 300,000?
Exactly.
Or the year after that's 320.
Yep.
Somebody has to be able to say, this is the designed capacity for that facility, unless you can show me where you got more property. And that's based on how many parking spots you have and how many parking slots you can actually get. Now, I want to grab the one that whoever's got the lot on Laramie, I guess it is, would be good, but they've never been told they could use that.
Right.
And I think they cleared it. I think it's cleared, isn't it? On Laramie? So it's already cleared for park, they just can't use it.
Yeah, right.
Yeah, and I was at the Holly meeting and, there was a couple there that owned the house right next to where they cleared. So they cleared it and, then they shot it down with the people living there. Were
That's
able to
right.
have that done.
Because they was not
Remember
allowed
that,
to use
George?
Laring Road.
Yeah.
Right, right.
They put the parking lot on the north side of Laring Road. And
Yes.
they was not allowed to use Laring Road to exit.
All right.
So then they wanted to cross Laring Road into the other parking lot.
Yes.
Like, who's gonna do that?
Yeah, I remember those, hearing about those, but you're right, it didn't get approved. All I'm saying is, somebody has to decide, is that in the count for the parking or not?
Right.
And if it's not, what is the capacity of the festival?
Yep.
Based on how many cars you can park.
Yes, I don't want to cut anybody off, and Janelle will let you talk, but we do have other items on the agenda that I'd like to try to get to. Like to try to get to it, and I got cake with my name on it in the back. Janelle.
So 3 points. First of all, I actually meant to start by saying congratulations, and I'm so sorry that this is your last. I really do feel for you. We just wanted the party to last. We didn't want you to leave. I don't know what to tell you. I really do. We should start with that. When they did the, I know you mentioned about maybe getting an engineering consideration with the special use ramp.
Oh, I want them to
Is that
opine on
part
that,
of
give
the
an
requirement?
opinion.
Can we do that?
I think that we would have to, I don't know.
Okay.
That was the answer to your question. I don't know, but I would explore saying, we need you to do engineering traffic control study in order for us to grant the special use permit, so we understand what parking we can have, if we need additional ramps and et cetera. And part of that would be someone professional that has more information to opine on what is the feasibility or possibility of a seasonal ramp off of I-75. I'd like to hear people that deal in this business to say,
Because it's an MDOT approval.
yeah, saying, well, if you did, here's the steps you'd have to go through. And it wouldn't be us, it'd be Holly, but I'd like to push to say, get that information out there so it can be talked about and see,
Right.
is it feasible?
And then my last question, and in my mind, I'm trying to even think of the feasibility and legalities of this. Is it possible for? How does the communication between our planning commission and Holly Planning Commission work? Outside of just, here are some suggestions that people came up with. Has there ever been an opportunity for the planning commissions to convene and discuss this together so that we can consider both of the communities? We can consider what's going on in the festival, where are the problems, what are they? Is that, I don't know.
I have met with the people that did the approval over there in the past. To discuss these issues, but obviously we haven't been able to get what we were looking for. So beyond that, the only requirement is from the county's perspective, when you do master plans, they want to make sure that whatever you have in your master plan at the perimeters of your community match in concept the stuff at the perimeter of the adjacent community. So other than when their master plan comes out.
Well, it's certainly true here.
Yeah. I mean, 'cause
Well, it's right across the road.
There's no requirements. I mean, but I've been there and it's not like they don't know what the problems are. Like I said, they go, yeah, we know. You get all the calls, Bob.
Yeah, and in past, my experience has been, they just weren't that willing to talk to us. And
That's the whole
this
point.
year has been the first indication that
They
they're,
think we need to together come to a solution.
yeah. So I've been encouraged by that. So I don't want to cut anybody off, but I would like to continue on to the other topics. Oh, Pam, I'm sorry. Did you have something?
My question was, had they ever done a study like that in Holly Township? Ever?
Yes.
Did
Not
the study
Holly
in the-
Township.
Or the Renaissance
Yeah,
Festival?
they did
where
have a traffic study
where
done
they did
once.
do the traffic study with the number of capacity,
It was
daily
the-
attendance to the number of parking?
They did a study on their parking design and the number of car slots they had, because that's when it finally showed up on the site plans.
Right.
I can't remember what year, it's been quite a while, but they did do a study that they paid,
Years
maybe it
ago.
was Roe, I don't know. They did a study back then and said, here's what we think works. But again, the festival used to run about 215,000 people, and it did work.
Yeah, and it's growing and it's not working. So-
And they have said, well, we put some more lots out. We put some more parking spots out. I can remember hearing her say that.
Yes.
And it's like, really?
Well, and she also did say that a lot of those lots were unusable, and the
Yep.
reality is they can move as much as they want back there, but it is all swamp, and then we'll run into that problem. We had a lot of rain. So anytime we have a lot of wet issues like we did this year, they're gonna run into that, unfortunately. Well, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. Appreciate it.
Interact with you and all.
Congratulations.
Thanks, thanks.
I'm gonna let you have your party. I'm gonna.
Yeah.
Thank
Thank you for listening to Holly residents. I appreciate it.
No, we appreciate you coming.
Yes,
Thank
you
thank
very
you.
much. Thank you,
Take a
Bob.
cookie, someone, everybody has to take a
Yeah,
Thanks, Bob.
I always like this.
Gary, get a cookie too, but you can't go.
Oh, we got more meetings. You wanna go home? Yeah, we're gonna take a break.
Take a break. Don't you feel bad? I would say majority, Karen. I don't see any reason why.
She's doing the next items, and we gotta get her. Can you hear us, Michelle?
Yes, can you hear me?
Yes, we don't see you, but we can, hear you, so that works. Michelle, I apologize for the delay. In
Oh,
getting
that's
you
okay.
on the-
No, I don't
Both-
want to rain on anyone's party, but it's hard to watch from afar that I can't be there.
We will freeze cake for you. It's very good.
Oh, thank you.
But so the next on the agenda is the old business. They're actually, the next two items really are yours. And so I'm going to just eat my cake and let
Yes.
you take the first item being the Dixie overlay.
Okay, great. Well, I'm sorry to add to the chaos of your last meeting, Jenny, but I had further conversations with the county. If you guys remember last month, I read you some of the county's comments about Dixie Highway overlay, the language we had written. And I had a further conversation with them. And of course, just a reminder that, you know, we're an autonomous municipality, so these are just recommendations. But after more conversation, they did seem a little worried about just on the township's behalf about some of the language. If for example, it is softer in some places, they are worried that, you know, a development with big pockets can really use that against you if you don't have a perfect track record of being consistent. And also if we're using softer language, that they can just sort of it'll be easier to bully their way through if it's not written more harshly. So what I did was I went through and I just looked at places where it said should, and I changed to shall. This is just for you all to look at and reassess if you agree with that. And the biggest change is that I struck out the last section where it says flexibility in application, mainly because we are teetering on whether these are guidelines or whether these are standards. And when we say it's flexible, we'll work with you on a case-by-case basis. I think that's where some of their worry came in as well, because a good question they had is, well, where does the ZBA fit into this if we're flexible and do everything on a case-by-case basis? So those were some of the corrections that I made, but it's up for the planning commission to decide if they want to accept them or not. If you do accept them now, we would have to hold another public hearing. And if you don't want to accept them, then you don't have to, and it can go as it stands before I made these corrections and then go on to the Board of Trustees.
Bob,
Michelle, just so you know, I sat in on that call because I knew you weren't gonna be there.
No, that was for the master plan, right?
Yeah,
Right. I'm referring to the Dixie Highway overlay language.
my correction, okay, you answered.
Okay.
Because they loved it when we got done with the master plan.
Yeah. Well, that's next
okay.
on the agenda.
So I just want to recap a little bit of some of our prior discussions on this very topic of, are we being too lenient? Should we be more forceful in our language? And we had discussions that, well, we still have the underlying ordinance that is applicable to the property they'll be developing. These were really more design standards, and so we're trying to be a little softer. I can totally appreciate their point of, if you get somebody with deep pockets and they might want to try to bully us and take us to court and fight, et cetera, that we might want to start out being a little more stringent. I did have a couple of questions of some of your corrections, but on the big picture, I would say probably because we are trying to do some stringent things up and down Dixie Highway and not have it get overdeveloped, where it turns into something like Waterford, that maybe we do start out being a little more stringent. So which means accepting the changes you have proposed.
Mhm.
I did then question, all right, how do we roll in the BZA with this as far as what they would be doing? So I do think we can make this more stringent, but we need to have that dialogue. How are we going to integrate the BZA in the enforcement of this, or as far as exceptions to it? What would be the parameters? Because it's new grounds for all of us, right? And I'm looking. The reason I think the BZA needs help is this is more design standards, architectural features to the building, or landscaping features as far as our lighting, features and stuff. It was a little bit more than just the stuff we've typically had. So I think we do want to think about what guidance, if any, we give to the BZA as we implement the Dixie overlay. So that's kind of on the township here, what we would do. So I recognize that this means we have to kind of go back through an approval process, of which I won't be a part. And so I would let others who will be a part of it opine on whether they want to do that or just go forward. So those are my thoughts. I'll let you guys give your thoughts.
Well, I like some of the changes that they did make and being consistent throughout the document
I
and being a
agree.
little bit firmer. So with that said, I guess we have to start over somewhat, unfortunately, but it's been a long process and we're really close.
Well, let's go through the approval steps, but it's not starting the whole.
Yeah,
correct.
right.
Right.
And just to give a little perspective, it's not uncommon to have more than one public hearing for a big change like this. And I've really made all of the changes. I go through it one more time before the public hearing, but what you see in front of you is more or less what would be at the public hearing, and the language that would be presented at the public hearing. And I did just want to kind of follow up on the language that you're using, Jenny, is that you are saying standards. And that's one of my big comments at the beginning, is that's where the confusion came in with the county, because we did have the word guidelines. And these really are standards. These are not do these if you like. These are you will do these. So I think we need to change that word as well from guidelines to standards. And then I am updating the zoning ordinance also for the township, and have been looking at the ZBA duties. So I guess it's good timing to figure out how that fits in and with this process.
Yes, because the unintentionally, the BZA can undo a lot of the intent here
Mhm.
if they don't have the right guidance on, because this is going to be new for them on how to enforce this. And,
Yeah.
you know, the guys that say that I just can't afford it, you know, blah, blah, blah. And
Right.
you're right, you know, yeah. So it'll be helpful. Jeff, your thoughts?
Personally, I think we take advantage of the insight from the county's recommendations. I don't know at this point in the process whether it's prudent or wise to be hasteful about it. So I don't know. I guess I would not oppose, you know, holding another public hearing on the issue and completely vetting it before we make our recommendation to BCA.
Okay, I think that's a.
The board. Mhm.
Yeah, so then now being a little more specific about some of the
Oh, yep.
changes.
Mhm.
I had a question on section 2.3 architectural features, which is on page 6 of the document, the red text that you included about pedestrian scale.
Yeah,
That text sounded like a definition to me, and so
it is.
I was left wondering, how does that fall in, and are you going to reference pedestrian scale and some of the architectural features? And I didn't see that, so it just seemed put in and out of place. Not that it's not necessary, but
Sure. Yeah, there are a couple references to pedestrian scale, and that was the county's comments of you should define that. So I guess another option is that it can just be included in the zoning ordinance instead of in just this section, or I can weave it into like a bullet point there. But there are a couple references to things that it's mainly lighting. For example, we say pedestrian scale lighting, which just means that we don't want it, you know, towering over people. We want it to be in proportion to a human body.
yeah, we don't have definitions in this, correct? We don't have it in the front. I don't recall having definitions, and so it just, I read that and I'm like, that's not really a requirement, it's the definitions, and I'm confused. Is it implying something? So I would almost advocate we put it in the ordinance definitions. And
Okay.
then to the extent it's used in this overlay, people don't understand what it is, we have it defined in the ordinance and they can see it there. We can link it in, right? You know, another.
Okay.
But again, I'm a short timer, so I'm really relying on the folks that have to carry the football, you know, over the goal line here to weigh in on what they want. Yes, no, maybe. I always say silence is acquiescence, so.
Sure, I'll take that.
Yeah, it's just blah, yeah.
And it needs to have something to lead into it or out of it or something.
Yeah, and I think I like, in the past, when I've gone through our ordinances and I've had a question, I like to go to the definitions, because then I know where to go. I don't like to try to look through the ordinance in a certain area and say, is this defined somewhere? I like to go one spot. So I would put this in.
Okay.
All right. That was all I had on, I mean, it's clear, and I think you did a nice job of changing the tenor of this to being more of a thou shall, you know, versus thou should.
Okay, great.
Any other comments, questions?
Yeah, thanks for making it stronger.
Sure, I'm glad we're all on the same page on that. So just to be clear then, this would be in the January meeting, we'd hold a public hearing, right? There's no meeting next month, is that correct?
December.
Correct.
January. Okay.
Yes.
Okay, well then, I'll just get with Danielle about making sure that that's noticed properly, and then it'll be in your packet in January, and then it will go to the Board of Trustees in February for final approval.
And that is, you know, and then I had looked in our bylaws, just as on a separate topic, that is when you're supposed to elect your officers in the January. Yeah, so.
Yeah,
So we
yeah,
wanna
so I
make
mean,
sure.
everybody knows. When most of them is January or December board meeting, we'll appoint them in January for the vacancy, and then the rest of you will have to figure out who you want to be your chair when Jenny's gone in January.
Right.
So it's another thing to think of besides the Renaissance Festival.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Do our best, Jenny.
Yeah. All right. So I think we're all set on the Dixie overlay. And so the next topic would be the master plan.
Yes. So Bob did attend the meeting in my absence. And you can see in your packet, the county had some notes, but their overall impression was that it complied. And there are just a few suggestions that were really just additive, not necessary in any means, but they're in your packet if you guys want to talk about them. The only ones that I would say that are easy things that we can do that won't require any additional process is the first one, they recommend an existing land use map, which we have and we can throw in the appendix. That's where we, in the section when we talk about, you know, this percentage of land is dedicated to this use. We pulled those numbers from the map that we made. We just didn't include the map. So they said to do that. That we can do without having to do like a public hearing or anything, because it can slip into the appendix. The other things, if we were to change, we would have to, you know, go through the public hearing process. And I'll let Bob speak to that since I wasn't at the meeting, how he feels about that, or if the county said any other comments.
When I left, they had a couple of questions. One of them was you need to make sure your fire department's aware of the emergency collateral work and stuff. There's some statement to that effect in there. And I said, the task force one is in our township. So we're well aware of that in mutual aid. And I answered 2 or 3 questions. And my sense was when we got done, they were, oh, okay, well, we're happy with everything. So it greased right through. I answered 2 or 3 questions for them like that one, and they were very happy, and that's all I left it.
What was the map they wanted to add? What was the name of it?
Existing.
Existing land use. Mhm. The other comments in there about having a mitigate, including anything from a hazard mitigation plan, which I don't know if the township has.
That was the other thing I asked, and Kevin is on the hazmat team for the county, so I couldn't remember what else it was, but again, I said, we're on the hazmat team, we do that stuff, we're part of it, and again, Mavis is the repository for the entire state, so it's in our township, so they were, oh, okay, we're happy with that.
That and
Kevin.
then. They had a comment about the sewer, which I couldn't, when they've asked me about it, I said, the last update I heard was that the township's not currently pursuing that. So I didn't write anything about it in the master plan. Is that accurate, Bob?
No, well, I updated that because Jim Nash, the Water Resource Commissioner, has kind of jumped on the bandwagon and got several of the county commissioners to agree to support the idea of bringing the capacity to the county line at Genesee. And so what they've done is they asked all 4 communities, Holly, Groveland, Ortonville, and Brandon, to sign a letter of support that we would tap into those Build America Better infrastructure dollars that we're all getting and haven't been able to figure out what we can do with them yet, to pay for the consultants they want to essentially negotiate with Genesee County to get the capacity increased at the county line. And there's every indication that all 4 communities agreed. And there's every indication that they actually wrote a separate resolution where they're suggested they've taken some of their money and are willing to do a 50-50 match. So where we approved up to 50,000 and some odd $100 for our part of it, they're all around 50-60 grand. It looks like the county will be able to probably match that for half. So we'll only be taking about 25,000 out of the 590 something thousand we're getting. And we don't know what to do with the rest of the money yet. But the sewers are only going to be brought in this phase to capacity at the county line for future use. Then what they would propose doing is down the road, if it's justified, there would be a segment that takes it down Dixie to Grange Hall Road, like for our property. And there would be another segment that takes it, and that would include Holly. And then there's another segment that would go over to M15 and down for the village of Ortonville and the 2 lakes on M15 that they want, again, if they're cost justified. But so what it really amounts to is we're buying into the idea of having capacity there for future use. And that's all that's being committed right now. And the implications from the calls we've had so far look like there's a good chance the county will actually pop for some of that money. But the consultants they want us to pay for, I don't know a better way to say this, aren't really being hired to kind of make sure we beat up Genesee right. We're only paying what the extra capacity costs. Okay.
So Bob, is this something you want written in the master plan?
I think I would, if you want, if anything, I would say the 4 communities have agreed to try and fund the intention of having the capacity from Genesee County brought to the county line at this time.
Okay, my only, and I'm happy to add that because that will affect future land use planning. I just, I think that any change like that where we're adding narrative will have to go through the amendment process. Because it's already been adopted.
That sewer project's, been in flux now for 2 years, up and down like a yo-yo. And this is the most positive aspect of it we've had, and the county's the one who's actually gotten the bandwagon together. They want this to happen. So if you think we have to do an amendment for that, I guess, but I mean, if they came to me next month and said, well, we thought we had it all lined up, but we don't, so it's all dead. You'd say, well, okay, been here 2 or 3 times already,
Mm-hmm.
So do you really think it's worth doing the amendment? We can't just put a narrative in there that there would be capacity at the county line should the communities decide to use sewers in the future? Because that's the only part they're talking about right now.
I understand. It's just the state statute is once you approve a plan, if you make changes to it, then you're technically amending it. So there's an amendment process that has to be public. But there are certain changes that are considered minor enough where they don't have to. And of course, that's a gray area. I can check in with my team and or your attorney, and we can decide at the January meeting if we want it to be a public hearing or not.
Couldn't we amend that at a later date when we actually find out if it all gets approved?
Well, when will we find out? Isn't this, sorry, my impression is that it's been going on for years, so we don't want to attach the master plan to the outcome of the sewer project, right?
No, so what I'm saying is, can you leave it the way it is until we actually know the money has come through and they're going to get the project negotiated? Because kind of what has to happen is we all agree to pump some money in, the county agrees to match half of it for us, and then they hire the consultants to go back to Genesee and say, now let's talk about what that extra capacity really costs. And I think they think it's not 30 million bucks, it's probably 8 million bucks. And then there's a good chance the county will pay for that. But I can't tell you all that until we get through all those hoops. So maybe it's better the way it is and amend it that whole process.
I see what you're saying now. Yes, I agree with that. We can wait.
Okay. Otherwise, we might be amending this based on what's happened 4 or 5 times this year.
Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah, well then if the planning commission is okay with, if you look through the county's comments and you don't feel like we need to make any other changes, I will just add the existing land use to the appendix, and then I can finally give you your final copies.
And how many copies can we get printed of that and the township map? Because I think I'm down to my last copy. I handed to a developer today. The old
You're
one.
down to your
No.
last copy of the map, zoning map?
Yeah,
look on top of the cabinet.
yeah, that's where I got the last one.
Are you referring to existing?
Yeah,
land
the
use?
existing, so I'd like to have the new one to give them if we can get it. You know how long that takes to get the maps? I mean, I need to supply them. I use them for developers when they come out and want to talk about what they want to do and where it is.
The zoning map?
Mhm.
Yeah, I can send you a bunch of copies of that. Usually for the master plan, we send enough for the planning, like one per planning commissioner and then a couple for staff, so probably 10. Is that enough?
Well, it'd be, it's funny because some people might come in and actually want a full copy. Even if we charge them, I would like to have a few extras here. But on the maps, if I could get those right away, I'm literally down to the very last copy I have in the storeroom right now today. So if
Okay.
you got a new use, that would be better. Just, you could send me like 50 of them or something, would be great.
Send you 50 zoning maps.
Yeah,
Okay.
please. Thank you.
But is it okay to just send 10 master plans?
No, he wants 20.
I still think we need about 20 of those. Some people want them or buy them, or want to be able to use them. I don't want to have just one for each of us, then there's nobody to give you another one. Yeah, I think 20 if we can. I don't care if we have to pay extra for printing, I want.
Right.
Okay. 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 Well, I think that's it for the master plan update then.
Well, great. And so then the last thing on our agenda would be just your monthly planning report. Any comments you'd like to make on the
Yeah.
materials that you?
Sure. I know it's been a long meeting and you guys have more cake and ice cream waiting. So I just really want to point you to two of the bigger topics there. They're on the second page of the planning report. One is the short-term rental that was passed in the Michigan House back in late October. And I just want to reiterate, I know I've brought this up before, but the Michigan Association of Planning, the Michigan Municipal League, and I believe the Michigan Township Association are all opposed to this bill, as it would preempt your right as a municipality to have any sort of meaningful regulation on short-term rentals. So they are also putting in the legislation that up to 30% of your housing stock could be short-term rental, and you would no longer have any say in that. So I'm really just stressing that to all my municipalities that I work for, that if you feel strongly about this issue, to contact your senator. And then second,
All the supervisors have been well praised of it, and we've all talked to our senator. Ruth is actually one of them that's holding that bill up from getting through, so.
okay.
We're on that one.
Okay, great. And then also that Michigan introduced a new Office of Rural Development. So that is, I think, exciting, because it's maybe hard to remember in Southeast Michigan that, you know, it's a mainly rural state and it wasn't being properly represented. So there's now a new office dedicated to that. That's a new, pretty big change at the state level government. So that's it for me. I also just wanted to echo what everyone said. Jenny, I know our time hasn't overlapped for too long at Groveland, but I think you've done a fantastic job, and I'm grateful that you'll be sticking around for the zoning ordinance update, so we can continue to work together. But thank you for taking the role seriously and doing such a great job.
Thanks, Michelle. I appreciate the comments, and all of you. I really, really have enjoyed working with everyone in this township, and but not her.
It's been our blessing.
Yeah. I've known Lynn, what, 40
Since you were in
46 years. yeah.
Ninth grade.
Yeah, so yeah, but I really, I think the world of the way this township is managed and, you know, there are very probably few in this state that have the fiscal responsibility and
53
management.
out of 1,240.
Yeah. Yeah.
No one's counting them, never.
Yeah, but I mean, you know, I mean, it's very admirable and you all pitch in and make this a great place to live. And so, thank you. Thank you. I'm ready, Lynn.
Can I make a motion that we all adjourn?
Accept that. Jenny seconds, and all in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Any opposed? Okay, meeting adjourned.
Does she know about it?
Bye, Danielle. Bye.
Yeah, we'll-
Monday, okay?
Happy Thanksgiving, everyone.
Thank you.
Happy Thanksgiving.
Happy Thanksgiving, Michelle.
Okay, bye.
No, Bob, I'm going to see my mommy.
That's more important than coming in here?
Yes. Yes, it
Jenny, it
is.
certainly has been a pleasure. Good luck.
Thank you. Thank you. I,
Enjoy your time and you have been a great resource.
well, I'm probably gonna still be working for, I think, the next year. With Michelle and the
Just helping
subcommittee.
you.
Ordinances, right, and, you know, we talked about how, I say, I think they were written in the year of our Lord, you know. but-
Yes, yes.
Because, you know, people now are more plain English and not the legalese stuff, so.
Yeah, so that helps.
That's good. But I really enjoyed working with you guys, and I'm sorry to see you going. I can't believe. But you're helping Holly out, so that
Yes,
helps.
I'm helping out, and I actually work for Nottingham too.
Oh, wow.
Okay, I do their books. It's just, I'm